probably not a name that you have heard of, but you have heard of many of our brands. On the bottom, DTS, we're the developers of the HD radio system. And as of last year, we merged with TiVo. And what I want to talk about today is what we call inside of Xperi a content first experience. And in particular, how this is relevant to in-car infotainment systems. But first, let's just start with setting the stage a little bit. From the standpoint of user experience, one of the for the car, we're about to make a significant transition from a traditional user experience that's was first around radio, and now there's brought in media. But we're going to head toward a fully integrated media experience, the kind of experience that we are now used to on our tablets or on our phones or on our TVs. We're going to get that level of integration in our car. And when we do, it should be designed specifically for the car. They put the other way. What it shouldn't be is some other experience, whether it's a handset or whether it's a TV experience that you just cut and paste to the dashboard. The car is a unique environment and will have unique characteristics, and people will demand unique things in the car relative to other environments. By way of an example, if you can remember back to the late 90s, Microsoft bought a company called Web TV. And this is the early days of the World Wide Web, when people sat at their computers and logged on to AOL or whatever they did. And they had a keyboard and a mouse, and they would get on the World Wide Web. What Web TV did is it took that experience and put it on the TV set. And it was a failure. And most of you probably don't remember it, and that proves the point that it was a failure. And the reason it was a failure is because it was a UX failure. The Web TV took what made sense, the user experience that made sense on a desktop, and simply pasted it to the television set. And people didn't want to sit in their couch or in their comfortable chair with a keyboard in their lap and some form of a mouse and go to content. What they're used to in the living room is to sit there with a remote control and have content come to them. So it was a failure of user experience, and we should be very careful not to make those kinds of mistakes as we design user experiences for the car. The car is not a living room on wheels. The car is not an office on wheels. The car is the car, and you can draw from the experiences in the living room. They certainly have characteristics of the living room, and you can draw from, but it's not the same thing, and we should design. And so what I want to talk about now is how to create a content first experience in general, and how do we apply that specifically to the car. So let's start with some definitions. What is a content first experience? Content first experience, it starts with discovery. And what I mean by that is finding content that is relevant to the user. And that could be based on their tastes. It could be based on time of day. Again, using that idea of what's appropriate for the car, what people want to listen to on their way to work, right? Get your head in the game. You're commuting to work when we used to do that. And on the way home, it's the exact opposite. You want to get your head out of the game. You want to unwind. You want to let go of all the stresses of the day before you get home. So the recommendations that you would make in that journey are different in the morning than they are in the evening. So those personalized recommendations is where a content first experience starts. Second, once you present a piece of content to an end user, you could just say, here's a piece of content. Do you want it or not? But you can also create an experience around the content by telling them things about it, showing them an image, showing them awards, showing them reviews of that piece of content, show them ratings, show the cast, show the director. You can do things around one of those content options, and that part of the experience becomes a piece of the total enjoyment of the infotainment system. So it's not just around take me to content, watch content. You can interact with the content as well. And then finally, it ends with consumption, right? So discovery, experience, consumption. By way of counterexample, what most experiences on the TV today, and even on mobile, especially mobile, is exactly the opposite. They're platform-first experiences, right? When you go to your TV set and you open your Roku, or you open your Fire, or you open your Apple TV, you're presented with a sea of apps, right? And you can choose Netflix, you can choose Hulu, you could choose whatever you're subscribed to, whatever's on your platform. And when you select one of those, you go into that platform, and you're presented with however that platform wants to present content, and then you finally can choose. It's the exact opposite. People don't care first and foremost about the platform. They care first and foremost about what is it that I want to consume. And once you've decided what you want to consume, where you want to consume it finally becomes relevant. Okay, so let's just give an example. This is a TiVo product. This is our TiVo Stream 4K. It's a little streamer. It's a dongle that you plug into your TV set, not unlike a Roku stick or a Fire stick. And on the left, you see what we call our unified home screen. And you'll notice that there's no mention of anything but content on this screen. It's on the bottom, there are carousels. There's live TV, recommended streaming originals. And then there's a piece of featured content on the top. Presumably, NCIS New Orleans is what the system thought at that moment what would be most relevant to me in the selection I would most appreciate. You're interacting with NCIS. You can read about this episode that they're recommending, and this is all backed up by a very deep catalog of metadata that we have, and you're seeing a very small slice of that catalog of content. So this is what we're using for a TV presentation. There's a bunch of other content that you could use that's relevant for a car. For example, you could, instead of emphasizing a visual presentation, you could emphasize, I'm being told you cannot see my presentation. Can you see it now?
I can see your presentation.
Okay. Okay, then my colleague must be off. Okay. So we can emphasize voice, for example, right? Because in the car, you don't want to be distracted, and your discovery should be primarily through voice if you're the driver. So you can take this catalog of metadata and don't use the visual part, use the textual part, and explain why this is a recommendation, right? We thought you'd like this because. So you're starting with the content, and in this unified home screen, you're seeing one carousel that's live TV, and then streaming originals is the next. And you'll notice it's a little bit hard to tell, but this first one on the left is a movie. The next one is a TV show. The next one is a movie. So you can mix all kinds of content. So this is a TV presentation, and so you're seeing all kinds of visual content, TV and movies and live TV and time-shifted TV. For a car, this unified home screen could start out as purely audio-based. It could be radio stations, it could be podcasts, it could be books, audio books, it could be any kind of audio content, but the same kind of a presentation with the same depth of experience and the same precision of recommendation. On the right top, you see linear TV. Again, a content first experience. It's presenting you with what is on right now, live TV. And in today's world, it could be streaming, it could be over the air. On the bottom is on-demand TV. So you see this a common presentation here. So if you were to select Minari from one of the options here on your unified home screen, you would then be taken into the movie section, and you'd learn about Minari, right? Tell you a little bit more about it. Again, we have a very deep catalog. You could explain much more about it, whatever's relevant to your consumer, to your environment. And you'll notice down here is the first time you're starting to see platforms. right? Vudu, Amazon Prime, Google Play. So now, you're learning much more about it. Now it's interesting to know, where can I possibly consume this content? Because you've gotten far down the path, you're likely to want to watch this program, and now it makes sense to present you with your options for where you can go consume it. One thing we found, one of the unique things about the TiVo product is that because of our lineage, we combine linear TV with all the other media, non-linear media options, whereas most of the other streamers focus on non-linear content. And linear, I mean, broadcast. It starts at a time and it ends at a time, versus non-linear, which is on demand, right? Anytime. And by combining linear with non-linear, you get much deeper engagement. But with our system, we can recommend across the spectrum. And with this presentation, we have found from our partners that the engagement on our platform, meaning the amount of times that people choose their platform, is 3 times higher than on any other Android platform. And the reason for that is because of this content first presentation, where at the end you get to choose where you consume it. And when presented with an ad-based option, people choose it. But if they go to Netflix first, it's not a possibility. So by favoring the content over the platform, you give people a better experience and more options as to where they can consume their content. Okay, so what are the components of that experience? How do you create that? What are the building blocks? Well, it starts with discovery. We have a service inside of Xperi called Personalized Content Discovery, PCD. And what it does is it creates a profile of the user. Most people think of TiVo as a consumer brand. We also provide third-party services to other branded services. And so we work behind the scenes. So we will have to personalize for customers that aren't direct TiVo customers. And so we don't need to have personally identifiable information. Our customers can maintain the identity, and we can simply personalize that identity and just track the things that are relevant to the discovery. So the PCD presents recommendations in the form of carousels. Right, this is a trending TV carousel. It could be more like this. It could be we think you would like because you like this. There's all different. We'll talk about that in a moment. But discovery in carousels, personalized to the user. The next building block is experience, and this is based on the metadata, as I had mentioned before. You're either trying to feature a piece of content, therefore tell them more about it, give them context so they can identify why it is you recommended that, or it could be because they're choosing it and you want to go a level deeper in discovery to say, here's okay, so I'm interested, here's more. So find out if you're really interested. So metadata is very important, and in a car it's especially important, given that the voice is expected to be a very big part of the interface. You can use all of this metadata. You could read that description. You can, you could say, find me, the latest crime drama, and it can give a list. And with this metadata, you can actually, fulfill that command in a meaningful way. Next is integration. Again, it's content first, so it ends with consumption. So integrating with all of the sources that people will want to consume is important. In our catalog, we have deep links with all of the major platforms. Our metadata catalog we sell as a product itself, and most, if not all, of the platforms that are on that stream are customers of ours and use our metadata. We have deep links to all of the major catalogs. I keep hitting the wrong button. And then lastly, monetization. One of the exciting options and one of the parts of this transformation that's happening in the car is that there's opportunities to make money with the dashboard and to provide consumers with options for how they consume. And AVOD, TVOD, SVOD are examples. AVOD is advertising supported video on demand. TVOD is transactional video on demand. This is where you buy or rent a piece of content. And SVOD is subscription video on demand, Netflix, for example. These are all different ways of monetizing the content. And these are available as options for the dashboard as well. And again, go back to the original point. If this is used in a way that's appropriate for the car, it can be good for the consumer and it can be good for the car company. And all of these are supported in a content first experience. Again, an example. By the time you get down to choosing where to consume it, there should be every option for the consumer, and they can choose whether they want to take a subscription to Showtime or do they not want a subscription, and they can simply watch advertising or listen to advertising interspersed in the content. Give the option to the consumer. Our experience is advertising support is something that consumers actually tolerate and prefer in many cases. Okay, so here are just some more examples about of what you would recognize in these, examples of these monetizations. So SVOD is Netflix, Hulu, Prime. TVOD is Prime and Apple TV, and a given platform can have multiple monetization options. On Prime, you could be subscribed to Prime, or you could rent or purchase a piece of content on Prime. And then AVOD, Pluto TV, Tubi, IMDb TV. This is a very fast-growing monetization category now. There are the major companies, media companies are investing very, very deeply in the AVOD model. IMDb TV is owned by Amazon. Pluto is owned by CBS Viacom. And they're using windowing to and AVOD in conjunction, so that an original piece of content can go on to Prime first, and over time can migrate down to IMDb TV and be available by subscription in the beginning or purchase in the beginning, and ultimately advertising supported through IMDb TV. And by presenting all of these options in your user experience, you give your consumers maximum choice. And then another category of monetization, which is lesser known, is sponsored discovery. This is where in the carousels of recommendations in your discovery experience, content owners can pay to be placed into these carousels. And you could either identify that that's being sponsored the way it is in the example I'm showing here, or not. And you're making a contextually relevant sponsored placement. So if this example is a jazz station in New York, and if you're recommending content similar to that jazz station, and Blue Note has a new release and they want to get in front of jazz fans, well, they can pay to be placed into a jazz relevant recommendation carousel. That's good for the content owner because they get put in front of people likely to consume their content. Good for the consumer because they're learning about new things and they're getting contextually relevant advertisement. And good for the car company because you're monetizing that discovery experience. So at TiVo, we have a long lineage of very high quality user experience around TV. We've developed this catalog of services and content that drive those experiences. And now through the merger and becoming part of Xperi, we're now coupled with the automotive business unit of Xperi, which has a 20-year history of delivering infotainment technologies to the automotive industry. And by combining those two things, we're going to bring all of that knowledge, experience, content, and technology to the automobile for the creation of content first experiences. So let's just get a little bit particular now around the car. So that's the basics of content first discovery. So enhanced display in the car. Again, I mentioned all the major platforms from Apple to Google are customers of ours and use our metadata. You'd recognize our metadata because it's everywhere you look. And you can use that content to create an enhanced display of content. Here is a presentation of Pearl Jam's 10 album, formatted for car presentation. If this were a car presentation, it'd probably be fewer options on the right. But again, you've got the date of the release, you've got the category, the genre, you've got editor reviews, you've got artist credits, you've got production credits, you've got deep descriptors. So, we'll tell you what the tempo of the song is, what the mood of the song, what the color of the song, et cetera, what the harmonic complexities, tons and tons of information about each of these pieces of content. So you can create a compelling visual display, as well as create using the contextual stuff, a very rich experience around this content. Next is what we call recipes, and I had mentioned we have these deeper descriptors like tempo and harmonic complexity, and you can use that to do many different kinds of things, like recommendations. For example, if you're going to recommend off of Pearl Jam 10, then you're going to look for things that have a similar harmonic complexity, for example, or have a similar theme, for example. And you can use those recipes in all different kinds of ways. All right, gratuitous animation. So this is playlist auto generation. This is a Billie Eilish Bad Guy, and because of the knowledge we have of this track, we can find other songs and create a playlist. This is like what we do on all the smart speakers. Make me a station like Billie Eilish Bad Guy, and that's driven by all of this very deep metadata that we have. And in a car, this is especially important because you should be eyes on the road, and this is all being done by voice. And the ability to use this deep descriptors to create this kind of an experience is especially important. This one's a little bit fanciful. I threw this in just because it's not exactly practical, but I want to just give an experience of of the kinds of things that you can do. And if you take something like this and you think of ways to apply it in an interesting way in the car, just know that it's driven by metadata. And if this is truly content first. So, this is a discography of the Beatles laid out as a timeline. And for each of the albums, you see that the album art, and then all the track listings and the release date. You can see it's scrollable on the bottom. There's a description of the Beatles. So this is, this could be a desktop experience, not a car experience, but you could see how rich and engaging this is. And you haven't consumed anything. You're enjoying the Beatles and you still haven't listened to anything. That's again, one of the major principles of a content first experience. We also have powered an exhibit that was done at the African American Museum of Music, and this was around interacting with it. So if that were this, the Beatles, you'd say who were like the Beatles, and it would give you a cloud of artists that are like the Beatles, and you can select them, and then that becomes the primary one, and the cloud changes. Again, it's just concepts around content first experiences. And then finally, there's discovery. I mentioned that there are multiple use cases. For the car, we've identified 7. I'm going to just tick you through a few of them, just to give you an idea of what you can do with this. So recently played is just it's just a playlist, but so similar. So this is keying off of radio. So this is similar to the radio station that you're listening to as you're driving through your commute. The radio stations you can receive will change, right? And you could even personalize broadcast radio, and we do. So you can be constantly recommending radio stations that are listenable, that are similar to the radio station that you're listening to. So if you lose reception, you can switch to something that's likely to be what you want to listen to based on what you're listening to. You can make a recommendation of content that's similar to the artist that's playing on the air. Here, Dexter Gordon is playing, and you could recommend other artists that are similar to Dexter Gordon, but it doesn't have to be artists. Again, you could do mixed recommendations. This could be anything similar to Dexter Gordon. It could be a podcast that does an anthology of Dexter Gordon, or a biography of Dexter Gordon. It could be a book, an audio book. It could be anything, and we recommend it. And then a simple recommended for you. We have a profile of your tastes, and we'll give you a mixed recommendation of anything on the platform. Chart topping music. There's all different charts. So this would be multiple carousels, but presumably it would be chart topping music relevant to the consumer. What's the most popular music right now for people like you? You can also do live recommendations. It doesn't have to be nonlinear. You could do linear recommendations. And so we have a profile, a taste profile of the user, and we know what's being broadcast on the air right now or being played live on TV right now. We could recommend that live content. So these are use cases for recommendation, and they're presented in the form of carousels. Another important tool for user experience is that not all of these, the order of these matters, and how they get populated matters. And at TiVo, we have tools that will instrument the user experience and give you ways to get insights into how people are traversing your user experience, and find areas where people have difficulty in your user experience. So you could have people just don't respond to chart-topping music, right? You could find that when they go there, they never choose a piece of content. What you could also find is 10% of your audience doesn't do well when you present them with chart-topping music. And you could gather those 10% into a user group, and you could take chart-topping music out of their recommendations, or you could move it down in the order of the carousel presentation. It's a way of customizing the user experience, analyzing the user experience, and making changes to the user experience to increase the amount of times that people find content when they go looking. Okay, so I'm at time. So again, this is what I'm trying to do here is I hope that this helps you to think about, as you design car user experiences, ways and tools that you can use to create a content first experience instead of just throwing a sea of apps onto people's dashboard and good luck. Help them find what they're looking for, help them engage the content, and then help them go actually consume the content somewhere. All right, Svetlana.